The worst thing in the world is when you have somebody who's a super user of your brand or business. They've been in a trillion times and somebody looks up at them like it's their first time. Nobody wants to feel that way.
And there's no way to deliver great hospitality if you don't know your client.
When people come in, we need to make sure that they're happy enough that they want to spend time here, not leave early, and want to come back.
Welcome to the 5-Star Fitness Podcast. My name is Jack Thomas, and we're joined today by Debra Strougo. Now, Debra founded and exited Row House, one of our award-winning brands at The Fit Guy, but she's also been an advisor to many other top brands, also many other leading boutique brands such as P-Volve that are also one of our award-winning studios. Now, today, Debra works with many leading brands in health, fitness, wellness. She talks a lot publicly on branding, experience, revenue growth, operational excellence, making her the perfect guest for this show. Debra, I want to start off with what gave you the confidence to start Row House back in 2014? What happened in your journey that led you to that point where you're like, yeah, I'm ready to do this?
Well, thank you for that question, Jack. And thank you so much for having me. This is such a fun podcast to be on, so global in its audience. You know what I think really helped me was just the years and years and years of experience I had as a fitness instructor, just knowing the needs of the client. I just talk about that all the time when it comes to hospitality, when it comes to brand building. It's like, if you get to those client needs and you know what your client is looking for in their journey when they come through your doors, you know that there are people that will show up if you sign the dotted line on the release and put your pennies together and bootstrap like we did to grow a brand. And so I think that's one thing. I just had so many years at that point in the fitness scene in New York City. And I also had a lot of years in brand building outside of the fitness industry. And so I understood what it took to grow a brand and to grab consumer insights and to make a robust enough kind of population that would ultimately make the brands profitable. And so that's really what I spent a lot of time thinking about, was how can we take this idea that there are customers that need this modality, wrap it in a brand that is kind of like there to emotionally drive them, welcome them, sustain them, give them what they're looking for from a new fitness idea, which was rowing, which not many people knew how to do. We were not rowers. I've said that a million times. But, to drive real results. And how do we create that into this environment that would make them come and want to come back, by the way, because that is the golden question. Like, if you come, will you come back? And by the way, will you bring friends? And so once I felt like that was sorted out and I had some people around me that thought I was crazy and thought that I was brilliant, I knew I was on the right track. At that point, a lot of people in that scene in New York, my peers, were building brands. And so we had some really successful stories to pull from. We had CrossFit that was really amazing at creating community. And so there were places to go to figure out how to become an operator. So I think I knew personally within me, I had what it takes or what it took to go do that entrepreneurial thing and figure it all out, what I didn't know. But I also knew that I had product market fit and some friends, advisors, really good social and political kind of like capital, if you would, that I could tap into to figure out how to make this a thing. And by the way, once you sign a lease, you never go back. So I had that too.
And did you plan when you launched it to open numerous locations, or did you start with one and think, okay, let's just sort of see what happens?
Yes. Our goal, and I did this with my husband and we did it all day and all night. Our goal was to go big or stay home. And so when we grew this brand, we did crazy things that people never, did. At that time, we called our coaches. We didn't call them instructors like they did at SoulCycle. And we really owned our talent. And our whole thing was, we are going to bring people in and we will coach them up, and we know how to do it. And we are that crazy that we're going to figure it out, because a lot of people have tried to bring this modality mainstream, knowing that it's really good fitness. We had some inspiration stories there with a great uncle of mine who said, you'll never hunch over as you age. You'll always stand up tall. really great weight loss stories coming out of this brand. Like I said, we weren't rowers, but we just felt that rowing created really good results. But at the same time, it was super duper hard to learn if you're coming off the couch or if you're, not a rower. And so we had to figure out that education entertainment gap and make sure that people who came enjoyed their stay. Otherwise, we knew they would never come back, which is key number one. In figuring all that out and sorting through how to offer that experience that would make people want to be a part of this culture and community we were building, we very much thought through how would we scale it ultimately. So how would we create classes that would be totally scalable as opposed to disjointed and different every time somebody came through, because that was not our brands, right? We wanted people to come in, have an expectation. We wanted to fulfill it, make sure it was rewarding so they would come back. And so to answer your question yet again in a different way, the first weekend we ran 4 classes. That first weekend ever, people approached the rowing machines like they were Martian alien objects, is what I say. Nobody knew how to use them except for the few rowers that were there that couldn't believe that they were paying for a rowing workout. And what ended up happening was I decided I'm teaching the class, not because I was the best instructor or coach, as we called them, but because I knew that I would teach the same class 4 times in a row, because I wanted to see how did 4 different groups react over the course of that Saturday and then that Sunday. And so that's what we did. We just went in and we fine-tuned that protocol and that experience, and we taught other people how to do it the same way, with the goal of continuing to replicate that process and grow throughout that process and not change too much too soon, because then you wouldn't, necessarily keep attracting people towards you or keep improving your processes. It would be too many variables. And that was our goal. Our goal was to be the household name.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's an unfair advantage to have been a coach or an instructor before. Like before I started my gym, I was coach for 6 years, manager for 2 years, and that really prepped me to actually launch my own business. And when you're getting there on the gym floor, you're doing classes yourself. I think it really helps you stay connected with the experience that you've built. And also, I love the use of terminology as well. I think that's so important. From day one for us, we never wanted to use the word trainer. Coach just sounded more like what they did, right? You're coaching people. You're not just instructing them or training them. You're actually coaching them. So I love that. Deborah, Fit Guide is all about bringing elements from other industries, such as hospitality. And of course, you have a background in New York's tourism, destination marketing world. Interested to just learn a little bit more about what you took from those industries and that experience into fitness.
Yeah, I mean, one of my dear friends way back when was a big restaurateur. And one of the first things he said is something that I've already addressed here. And I think it's very important for everybody listening to think about. He said, when people come into my restaurants, the only thing I care about is will they come back? And that's a really, really important hospitality piece here. When people come in, we need to make sure that they're happy and that they're, happy enough that they want to spend time here, not leave early, and want to come back. And that's different for all different sorts of people, what that means, right? But it could be anything from a facility standpoint to a programming standpoint to the volume standpoint. And so setting these expectations and kind of creating that brand's experience for me was very much where it's at. Like, these are our protocols, these are our do's, and these are our don'ts. And I think, learn that in brand building in the publishing industry, which I did 5 years out of college alongside my fitness side hustle. I was a part of teams that worked with brands like Snoopy, which is a global iconic brand, very well known for how family friendly that brand is. What is that brand and what is that brand not? I've done presentations on this in the past, and my favorite piece is just literally thinking about this for a second. Peanuts, the Snoopy brand, right? That is a family-friendly brand. What it is not is racy, edgy. And by the way, here's a fun one for you, Jack. What it is not is pornographic, okay? And one of my first jobs out of school was, for whatever reason, I became the person that was policing Peanuts porn on the internet, okay?
Wow.
So it was very interesting. I'm sure you've never covered this on the Fit Guide.
I haven't.
Thinking about your brands that way and your experience, what are you and what are you not, is something that kind of always stayed with me. later than that, when I was working in New York City tourism destination marketing, we talked about what is New York City as an experience. What New York City as an experience is compared to what Vegas is as an experience is very different, right? So what it is versus what it's not. What Vegas is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? That's what we all know about Las Vegas. What happens in New York City is meant to stay with you for a lifetime. So it's meant to be enriching. It's not meant to be forgotten about. And so I think sometimes when people are dialing up their hospitality experience, thinking about what they are not is very helpful in thinking about what they actually are, right? So if you're an elegant, top-notch hotel, you should be rolling out the red carpet for people. It should be clean when you walk in. If you're a CrossFit gym and it's rugged and you're, using chalk all the time, it's okay if there's chalk all over the floors. It is not okay to see chalk all over the floors at some of our more upscale, we'll use, the quintessential like Soul Cycle type experience. That was not okay. So I think that a lot of, for me, getting into fitness and getting into building a fitness brand where people would want to come back, especially in a modality that was totally not known, was about really kind of creating that culture and that environment that people wanted to become a part of. And I've had people come back to me and they'll say, well, if you could make growing a thing, you could do anything. And it's like, okay, maybe. But there were just customer insights within building that brand. People wanted something that was camaraderie. People wanted something where there was belonging. People wanted something that was authentic with real results. And we kind of created those as our key brand values. And that's what we were. And what we weren't was gimmicky or ABC, XYZ. So that's how I think some of those other brand development type of experience helped me shape and grow this particular brand. I have gone on to help some other brands do it in the women's wellness space, in the biohacking space, right? Because there's an element of education and entertainment, as I mentioned, that you really need to make sure that you balance. But certainly, this is all new when you're going out to develop a brand. So you need to make sure you understand the customers and they will actually be there for you. Otherwise, you'll end up with nothing.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such a great exercise to go through, a branding exercise. What do you stand for? What do you stand against? And the brands that just try to stand for everyone or be for everyone do struggle. I think one brand that does that very well is Metabolic, who's been on other show. They're just very vocal about what they stand against as much as what they stand for. And I think that really helps them to kind of build their following. I could dig into this for a while, Debra, but I want to hear about what's the perfect in-person boutique experience for you, the whole member journey. And you can draw in experience from Row House, the other brands you've worked with. They can also maybe start with contact that might be online and finish sort of after they've left the studio. But yeah, take your time, talk us through the whole perfect member journey and some of the little things that we'd like to see as customers.
Yeah, I love that, Jack. So certainly I think it is the entire member journey, as you say. I used to always kind of say brand experience is A to Z, and it starts before you're even going anywhere near there. And I used to always say to the coaches for this brand, for any brands, the minute you're walking in with a shirt down the block, you are part of the brands and you're representing the brands out there. And so part of what this is all about is being able to train everybody that's a part of this ecosystem to properly represent the ecosystem, to be quote unquote on brands, because that's what then drives the cohesive hospitality experience, right? If I'm a very competitive trainer or coach, then I shouldn't belong in a brand that's not about competition. It's more about camaraderie and everybody pulling together, which was one of our mantras, right? If I can't understand that everybody has a purpose here within this, and I only want to click off to the side, then I should not be within this type of a brand. I should be in a more clicky competition where we're all going to live in our own little silos type brands, which is fine. So I think to answer your question, really the goal is to kind of create that cohesive experience from A to Z. Somebody sees the brands, they have an expectation, they have an emotional connection to it. This is warm and fuzzy. This is where I'll feel at home. And then once they walk into the experience, for that all to happen. And I've heard you on many podcasts talking about making eye contact, looking up, making sure people feel seen and heard. For me, I always took it also to photos and names, right? So it was a big, huge request and requirement of our booking platforms to be able to easily get photos into the system. If you're on a booking platform out there that doesn't do it yet, please make sure that you put that request in. Getting a photo so that your new desk staff will know and anticipate an experienced member when they come in, or client, or even a newcomer when they come in, so that they can greet them and say, welcome. I haven't met you before, but I've heard you've been here a million times, or welcome. I hear you're new. I'm so glad to have you here. So that people feel immediately part of that welcoming experience. That is super important to me. Or to your point, people are busy. You look and you say, hi, just give me a minute. The worst thing in the world is when you have somebody who's a super user of your brand or business. They've been in a trillion times, and somebody looks up at them like it's their first time. Nobody wants to feel that way. Making sure that that community is known, annotated, highlighted for the people that are working in the ecosystem once they come in is hugely, hugely important, I think, and something that I always drilled home. And then obviously making sure that people know when the class is going to start, making sure that the class is going to start on time if you're in a class-driven type of an experience, and know where to wait, know where to get the water, all of those types of things, I think help make people feel very comfortable and very at home. And so that's part of the experience that I think that people have come to expect. And there's no reason that we can't remember to do it each and every time. Hey, do you need me to show you around everything? Are you familiar with where things are? Or, just want to double check, I'm happy to do that for you. Give me one moment if you can. So making sure that that's done. I also have always thought a lot about that side conversation that happens when you walk into a lobby, right? This person knows that person. And if people feel like they know people too well, then the newcomer gets left out. And so I think that that's a big part too, right? Because this is usually the beginning of your stay, meaning you come in for a workout or you come in for a class and you've just walked in, and it's like your first impression each and every time. We've talked about that in boutique fitness. You have to essentially win back people each and every time, even if they're on ongoing memberships. And so just making sure that people feel part of the conversation and that the conversation isn't getting too detailed or clicky, I think is something that in that ultimate experience is very important. And then of course the class needs to, or the workout needs to be the expectation that was met. For us instructors, we're not supposed to go extra long. They were not supposed to play extra loud. They were not supposed to treat it like a library. We set brand standards, and I've seen most of the really good thriving brands out there doing that these days. Set brand standards. Is there profanity in music, or is there not profanity in music? So that everybody, when they come in, has a consistent, cohesive experience, and they know what they're going to get, and it doesn't turn them off, so that they do indeed want to come back and want to bring people again. The last thing, Jack, I'm just going to say on this is what's rewarding for some people might not be rewarding for other people. And in the community that we created in Row House, we were very focused on, you could be an emotional user like me, quote unquote, along for the ride. And this is some of our brand language. Or you could be a powerhouse user that's there for performance and, athletic pursuit and all of that. And so for us, rewarding could look very different. Whereas I think that there are other brands where it is a more athletic pursuit. Everybody needs to go in and go strong and go hard. And that's what makes it rewarding. And how hard did you work today? And did you work at your best? And so that's where I think it goes back to just really understanding your user, wellness type of program where people are working on recovery. And I've spent a lot of time in that space. Or, a female focused program where people are thinking about life changes throughout their different programs. That element of rewarding is going to feel and look different. So we really need to all be thinking as leaders in the fitness space about what we're trying to hold people and support people in their journeys, and then make sure that that experience is doing it from A to Z through and through, knowing who that customer is and what that customer needs. And it could be that that customer is 3 different customers, or it could be that there's really only one main person that you're trying to evolve for. But I think that's where you get into some of the segmentation questions. But again, key in creating an experience that people want to come back for.
Yeah, well, what I love about doing this show, Deborah, is just hearing how purposeful the member journey is. And when we talk to different brands and you just hear about the way that they put the experience together, the way they deliver it consistently, you're like, wow, it's no accident they've scored well on the Fit Guide. And as you're talking through the member journey there, you're literally saying, you probably said 20 of just the little things that we look for and some of the big things that we look for, even little things like knowing where to fill your water up, being told where to wait. And one I just want to pick on, which is crucial, is the community element. Now, we have one standard around there being a sense of community. And a lot of people have said, well, it's a bit hard to sort of judge that, but we have very specific things that we look for. And really, the way to sum it up is you're trying to bring a new person into the club's community. So what you said about someone not knowing someone else, if it can just be a little introduction before the class, after the class, during the class, oh, Jack's new to this session, meet Deborah, she's been coming here for a while, that would be that standard scored. And there's not many studios really doing that, but we look for these little things. It's not there's already a community there and they all know each other and they're high-fiving. It's bringing that new person into the community, and that's something that we want to see more of. So I'm glad that you mentioned that piece. How do you find the right people to deliver this experience?
You know, there are tips and tricks on exactly what you just said, which is when you go on the website, or on social, do you see things about the instructors or the coaches that make you feel connected to them? Or the same thing about the members, right? Are we sharing kind of member stories? We also, for many years, had studios where we would have community boards or instructor boards, and you'd put it up there. So then it became a question of, okay, so in this location, we have 6 people who are teaching the workouts. And of those 6 people, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about their name, their favorite pet, their favorite ice cream flavor? Oh, no, let's not talk about ice cream, because in a weight loss program, people don't want to see ice cream mentions the minute they walk in the gym. I learned that quickly in the row house space where we had a lot of weight loss customers, or their favorite song or whatever. So what is kind of like a relevant on-brand thing that we can have a photo of this person up, talk about where they, their spirit animal, their nickname, what would it be that could help kind of elicit some community? So when you're sitting out there waiting and you're going to go in and take Dawn's class, for example, well, maybe you just learned something about Dawn, her hometown. And so you have something to connect with her about. And by the way, again, on the flip side, this is one of the reasons we put in milestones in the row house experience, was to get people past that 5th class where we felt like then they got it. They understood how to row. They understood this was going to give them real results. They felt they were a part of the community. So that was to get to XYZ. It was 50,000 meters. But every time we took a photo of that person, we talked also about what brought them in and why they were happy to be a part of this. And that, again, kind of creates community. And I think, to your point, if you take those elements and figure out how to pull people together, literally, which is the tagline that we did, how to pull it all together for people, then that's what kind of creates the right people from a member. And then we were starting to talk about staff perspective. Your staff doesn't want to be anywhere else. That's where they want to be, because that feels like home. And if it's just a workout location with 4 walls and a good workout, you don't create that same emotional connection or that same feeling of home or that same feeling of community where people are going to want to go to your little get together afterwards or go have brunch with somebody after a Sunday morning workout. And so I think social media, in-store, community type posters and all of those types of things are the way that you dial up that conversation. So then it naturally happens.
It's interesting with branding. You don't just attract the kind of members that are right for your brand, but you also attract the right kind of staff that also buy in, right? The right coaches that are like, yeah, Row House is a brand for me. And I think that's kind of an unspoken thing about branding. It pulls in the right people to deliver it as well. And again, when you really stand for something and you really stand against something, you just kind of end up naturally attracting the right people, I think. Deborah, we had a bit of a chat online about kind of attention to detail in branding. I shared it was actually a matcha store, and it had a little syrup bottle with it just kind of scribbled on. Tell us a little bit about those little fine details in the experience that really make up that kind of brand vibe or brand feeling.
Yeah, well, and I think we were also talking about the birthday post, which has been a big one for me.
Yes, that's right.
that, there are universal truths out there, right? And so the universal truths are we all have birthdays, and most people like to celebrate them, right? And so what are the little things where you can surprise and delight your customer? I think that's, for me, where it goes to is like where you can really make people feel seen and heard and be a part of the thing. And we talk about attracting clients that want to be a part of a community, and fitness being the new church or the new community center or everything like that, where people literally want to spend their time. And then you talk about staff wanting to work in that environment where you're not staring at the clock, right? I mean, so many of us that work in fitness are working in fitness because it's passion filled, and it feels like you're not looking at the clock all the time. You're like essentially in a party all of the time. And honestly, it also attracts stakeholders of other types, business partners, investors. In the franchise system, we talk about that all the time. Like, you're not the right franchisee if this doesn't vibe for you, right? So I think for me, that's what it's about. It's about, again, like understanding your people so much that you understand the touch points that make them tick. And I think a little bit about some of the people that sent me those birthday emails. This is on a LinkedIn post. If anybody wants to pull me up on LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll end up getting served it by the beautiful LinkedIn algorithm. But it's not that I care so much about my birthday. It's that a million brands, especially dental offices, by the way, knew it was my birthday. And the 2 studios that I actually chose to go to that day, because I did a back-to-back, which is not normally like me. I did a strength workout and then a yoga workout. And those 2 studios did not know it was my birthday. They didn't say happy birthday. They didn't send me a happy birthday letter. Nothing happens within the studio. And what I thought about it was, it's not that I necessarily needed it from them, even though I was getting it from others. But what I did see was those 2 studios did it for others, either before my birthday or after my birthday. So it was inconsistent. So I think that goes back to brand building, is you need to be consistent. If you're going to say happy birthday to one, say happy birthday to all. If you're going to decide that there's too many people to say happy birthday to everybody, then, I mean, I understand we're all human. You might still say happy birthday, but I found it really insulting that the following week, when I went back to the same studio, they took it so far to play happy birthday during the workout for another person. It was as if it was a joke. So those are the types of things that I just think, when you're creating a brand, you need to really think about how to be consistent through and through, so that you don't upset people that otherwise really love you. And the last thing I'm going to say on this, Jack, without going too deep down the rabbit hole, because people who are in brand building and community generation and hospitality, they geek out on this. And so I bumped into an amazing CMO from a really, really top growth brands with a ton of locations. And he was telling me that post spiked a whole conversation across them about as to whether or not it's appropriate to send birthday emails or not. So again, I'm not saying everybody should send them. I'm just saying that you need to create that consistent feel. And that was a big thing for Row House. It's a big thing for Pvolve. It's a big thing for like a lot of the brands, that we all care about. Orange Theory. You walk in, you walk out, and whether you're going to visit it in New York or in Japan or in, LA or in Memphis, that experience needs to feel consistent. Otherwise, it feels like something is broken. And that whole thing happens through communication and training. And so that's why, to me, hospitality is nothing without really, really, really good communication and training to all people within that entire ecosystem.
Yeah, we talk a lot about one of the key pillars of hospitality being personalization, right? And I think properly celebrating someone's birthday is the ultimate way really to really personalize that day to them. Let's dig a little bit deeper into personalization. Tell us a bit more about how you've done that with the brands that you've worked with, and how particularly you use customer segmentation to really make sure that we can make the journey personal.
Yeah, I think about that a lot also as it relates to the gym industry. So the gym industry was really, really good on very specialized personalization, right? So the gym industry would pull people in and they would say, what are your goals? And this is the plan. And this is how we're going to give you access to those goals, whether it's going to be through personal training or through group classes or through you working out on your gym floor alone or what have you. And then in the rise of boutique, you didn't have that time or touch point, the one-on-one touch point to really do that. And so that's where I think there became a big shift to kind of bucketizing people into more of a demographic, a behavior bucket. People talk about avatars, or I just have always referred to it as bucket. For us in the boutique segment, and for most of the brands I've worked with in boutique, we've gone out and we've said, okay, you have pretty much your trendsetters, your people who are always going to try everything new, but you cannot rely on that to be your business. And then who else are you going to bring in? So, in female focused brands, you have people that are very in tune with their bodies, trying to figure out, what's the next thing. In the IV type brands, I've worked in that space a little bit, in the biohacking space. You have people maybe who are unwell for some reason today because they didn't sleep well, or they had some sort of like acute injury or flare up. They're feeling pain with some sort of disease or, injury. That's a bucket, an unwell bucket. And then you have people that are well, just trying to really look ahead and to say, how can I be my best, be my, fear of getting older, those types of people that are trying to live for longevity. So different brands, I think, when you look out at kind of your population, have to think about it differently. Who are you looking to attract and who are you looking to bring in? A lot of times the founder is the one that has that vision and has it scribbled somewhere in a napkin. I just recently did some row house back in the day posts, and I talked about the napkin and I talked about the poster. Those are fun to really think back to that. But then when you start to go mass market, right, you have to say, well, is that a big enough population for me? And does that population also live in these other markets that I'm going to? Or do I have to start thinking a little bit more about the psychographics? Like, I want to try something new, or I'm a risk averse athlete. And so those different buckets, I mean, you have to work through with your team. It's something that I've helped people kind of facilitate the conversation. But once you come up with those buckets, 2, 3, 4, those are essentially what inform every single thing in your ecosystem. And that's, you give it to the marketers, and that's what the marketers should be using to do their ads, so that, again, you're bringing more people in for your community. So Jack, hopefully something I said there answered your question.
It did. Absolutely. I think you talk to these people very differently, right? And I think the wellness industry, recovery concepts, things like that, IV, as you've worked with, is a really good example, because it's such different reasons why you're doing it. Are you curing a hangover, or are you really trying to get your health back on track? And you're going to talk to those people so differently. I think email is an obvious one as well, right? You can also segment your email lists.
Exactly. So it's like your question was in personalization, and it's almost like there was a brand I worked with, like IV space. You walk in at first, 6 different options. Well, that's a lot. That's paradox of choice, right? So we can't deal with 6 options. So let's boil it down to, are you needing something immediately, or are you looking for the long term? Okay, now you're in 2 different options. I have your thing, you're here or you're here. And now I'm going to take you further and give you the different options beyond that, right? So you're funneling people essentially down that funnel to get them closer to what they need. And then, to your point, once you have a sense of who this user is, what they're looking for, what they need from you, we can use AI and go personal all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should be speaking to them, again, on email, on text, by their name, by their day. We should be figuring out why they're not in this week if they weren't in last week. Like, we definitely have to get super duper personal. But I just think we, as an industry, have gotten better at not making false promises either, right? Understanding more the things that inspire and motivate people, so that that's what we can give them the results for, and ultimately drive that way, without saying to them, I'm going to help you lose 30 pounds, when you don't know if they're going to do the work to lose the 30 pounds.
Yeah, you mentioned it already, but ads is just crucial to know this stuff and to lean into it, because again, you're going to talk to these people very differently. They're going to be motivated by very different things. So you've got to tailor your ads accordingly. Row house could be for fun. I just love it and I enjoy it. Or it could be like, I need to lose 30 kg. And again, you're going to find different hooks for them to actually bring them in and to try the experience out. Debra, let's talk about brands and people from inside health, fitness, wellness that you love and that absolutely inspire you.
The brands from wellness and fitness that inspire me, I really have to give a shout out to Les Mills. If you're familiar with the Les Mills brand, I was recently invited to an event of theirs, and they just talk about hospitality and knowing their audience, and they really, really do it well. I mean, we were on a couple of day retreat. It was like a surprise and delight all the way. You trust that brand so much that you know when you show up, it's going to be well curated, whatever it is, without even having all that much information. And it so much so that when it was time to leave and to go home, there were these beautiful goodie bags with healthy snacks that we all wanted to eat on our voyage. They do a lot of gifting that is really thoughtful, and it's not the type of gifting giveaways that are just going to get thrown away. Like, I'm going to be using those types of things that they shared with us for eternity. And again, it goes back to like really knowing who your audience is. I think that they've made a mark for themselves, not only in this type of event where they knew our audience and, went above and beyond, but also just in what they do as an organization. They know that fitness consumer inside and out, having spent a lot of time in that space. And there is a big disconnect that I see in the industry where you have a lot of passionate fitness trainers and all of that are tip of the spear. They work with the consumer, they understand it. And then you have kind of the sales and marketing functions that maybe are from outside of the industry, and they don't necessarily know how to really kind of bring it together and speak the language so that the storytelling is consistent, so that experience that people are actually feeling is socialized to the outside world. And so I think Les Mills is just a brand that really has their finger on their pulse, and they're able to dial that up quite a bit. I've been very impressed by them. Other brands outside of this space, I am infatuated with the WWE. Not because of any of the weird reasons, because if you go to like WrestleMania, or even, same thing for like NASCAR. I have a friend who's invited me to both, to each. And if you go and you walk into those communities and you just see how strong that customer base is and the population is, how much is merchandised, how much people will spend, right, to have a WWE belt, or go spend an entire day in NASCAR at the event and be a part of that full day experience for their families. I mean, this is value and experience. And I think that as an industry, again, we have to constantly be refreshing and remembering that people will pay for things that they value, and we should not be discounting it down. That brings me a little bit to your ClassPass podcast, which you did, Jack, which I heard and spent some time on the ClassPass advisory board. And I do back in the day. And, I do think that discoverability is really, really important too. Audience development. Again, not everybody has money to go spend a day at WWE or to get tickets to, a Taylor Swift concert, but we need to remember ways by which we can help people have access and find ways to be able to afford things. I think a lot also about Broadway in general. I spent quite a bit of time working in Broadway in New York City. I actually was one of the people that got Broadway Week over the hump. People never thought that Broadway Week would be something that the Broadway theaters would agree to participate in. But when I was in New York City tourism, I rallied all the Broadway theaters and I said, your experiences are wonderful. Your shows are great, but the tickets are extremely expensive. And so we need to figure out a way to maintain price integrity, but to bring other people in to explore and to enjoy the world of Broadway. And so we ended up doing a Broadway Week as a 2-for-1. That's now been around, I think, 15 years since I had been a part of the group that started it. And that's something else I think we have to learn from, is that generally Broadway, if you think of Broadway as the brand or the industry or the movement, it is where people go to have an experience. They know that the show's going to start on time. The curtain will always go up. You will end up, seeing what you came to see. And by the way, there is a lot of seasonality. And so that's why I bring it up here specifically, is in January, nobody goes to shows. And that's where we figured out January is your audience development initiative. It's past the holidays. It's when people aren't traveling quite as much. And so this is the time where you're going to figure out how to make sure that these shows don't go belly up, they don't go bankrupt, they don't go dark, and swap in new shows. And so generally, I think of anything in the entertainment industry as well in terms of seats and capacity. And ClassPass obviously helped us with seats and capacity. And so those types of initiatives, I think, are very useful to finding more people to feed into our industry wherever we can, so that we can keep our business going throughout the year and keep those brands, users, and the evangelists growing and coming to us like a flywheel effect.
Yeah, I think Broadway's a fantastic example. We talked about it on a recent episode with myself and Matt about hospitality as theater, because I think Broadway do that better than anyone else. They perform, they deliver an incredible experience every single time, no matter what's going on in their lives or anything else. And I think we could learn a lot from them in the fitness industry. And I like WWE as well in terms of experience, in terms of showtime. If we can bring some of that to fitness and wellness, then we're doing things well and we're really going to stand out. Going to get to a quick fire round, but before we jump into that, I want to, you've had a lot of success, Debra, and you've built and sold some great companies, of course, and you're involved in many great companies. But I want to, we think it's important to get the message out that it isn't always easy and there are difficult times as well. Can you talk us through like a dark and difficult time in your entrepreneurial journey and how you overcame it?
Yeah, it is certainly not easy. And they say that a lot, like it's lonely at the top and all of these types of things. And I think it's important for everybody to remember. I think for me personally, and I have not been shy about this at all, COVID and the pandemic was a terrible, terrible time of loss, financial loss, community loss. We had built up 100 or so employees across studios and more than that in the greater scheme. And it just was a time where you just had to shed yourself of all of those connections, of everything that you had been and created over those past couple of years. And also in relocation and in closing of stores. I mean, that was something where in a way we had a greater fitness community that had a lot of loss then to kind of come together on. But for me personally, my husband at that time also was diagnosed with a neurological disability. He was a very fit human being who ultimately couldn't get out and do all of those athletic pursuits that he had once been a part of. And so, you feel like your life has kind of just crashed down around you. And I think that, the message there is that if you go within yourself and figure out who are you here, what is your purpose, what are your talents, and, kind of let it feel the feels, feel the emotions, like all of that, and let it kind of run its course, but still get up every day and keep going. That's where you figure out where you're supposed to be once you face all that adversity. I spent a lot of time kind of working through that, figuring out how do I come back from that by helping others with what I've learned through the years. What do I know? What did I learn through the years? And all these types of things. And ultimately, it certainly takes time to get to any sort of reward, I think, when you go through dark or difficult times, but you just have to truly trust the process and know that your community will support you in getting there, that your own self and, what you bring to the table and your innate skills will still be there as soon as you can, start getting it all moving again. And so for me, I've trusted the process. I've put in a lot of work. I've learned to speak up a bit more than I think I did at various points. And that was just a personal growth journey that I had to do. And, I think that now it's rewarding and it makes sense what that dark chapter was able to provide me with to go forward and to help others and to rebuild things. But, that's the upside, and we all hopefully will get to that upside and keep going from there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Debra. I really like this idea of kind of when things aren't going well, if things are being disrupted, just really stripping it back to what do I stand for? What am I good at? What are my values? I like that. And then building again from that. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. We're going to finish up with our quick fire round. So we're aiming for around 30 seconds on each one, maybe even a sentence if you can do it in a sentence. We're going to start off with, what is your proudest achievement?
I think my proudest achievement is my kids seeing the brands that I created So much so that people stop us in the street and they'll be like, if I'm wearing a row, oh, do you go to Row House? Oh, you're the founder. Like that's still a big achievement. And also just hearing stories of like lives that were changed, stories that we don't even necessarily know. That's a huge achievement for me.
I love that. I haven't heard that one before, but yeah, I'm definitely one of my first things I felt when my son was born is I'm looking forward to inspiring him and showing him some of the cool things that we've built. So I love that. If you went back and built all of the things you've built again, what's just one small thing that you would do differently?
I think manage the money perfectly from the beginning. Like figure out how to manage the money perfectly from the beginning.
Yep, that certainly resonates with me as well. What's a small detail in the experiences you've built that most people overlook but make a huge difference in the experience?
I think just the smile, like the smile and your eyes being present. And I know you've said it a million times, but that's the thing.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Honestly, don't do busy work in the studio. Don't do busy work in the studio. Don't do payroll when you're supposed to be greeting guests. People will think you're mean, and you're not mean. You're just working. Find another place to do it.
And what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Well, one of my bosses once told me I will always be pissing somebody off. She was like, as a working mom and a career builder and a friend and a wife, you'll always be pissing somebody off. So just accept it. And I'm still deciding if that was good advice or bad.
Yeah, I was going to say that maybe sounds quite good. It's certainly hard to keep everyone happy all of the time. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to do something really special in our industry?
Follow your passion, but run your numbers.
And then what's one key principle that you would embed into the DNA of every club, every experience in our industry that you haven't yet had a chance to talk about today?
I think know your clients. I mean, I have had the chance to talk about it, but like it is so important that you know the people that are walking through the doors. I think the biggest leaders in our industry are people that spend time literally on the floor, literally in the classes, literally talking to every single person throughout that ecosystem. And it's just the DNA of what makes it tick, and being a lifelong learner in this space, seeing the new things, trying the new things, understanding why certain people love the new things, even if you don't love them. I just think it's just where it's at. We need to really, really, truly understand the people that are coming through our doors.
Yeah, it speaks so closely to what we've talked about a lot on this podcast, knowing your client. And there's no way to deliver great hospitality if you don't know your client. And ironically, even the process of getting to know your client is also great hospitality. You know, just that process of like, oh, do you live around here? Do you work around here? Have you done this kind of thing before? What's your goals? What's your dreams? Even just doing that really is a big step forwards. Finally, Debra, I didn't get a chance to ask this, but it's a big one for us and one that I always like to dig into. What's one time when you've received delightful hospitality? And that could be a business, it could also be a person. And how did that make you feel?
With you, Jack, with you. You set me up for success today. We made sure that we scheduled accordingly to make sure that the scheduling time worked. We had to move this around and we did that successfully. I knew when I got on what to expect because you shared some questions in advance. We prepped the lighting and all that. It just goes to show that, finding the people also around you that have similar values is important, meaning showing up and being prepared and all those types of things. And when you do that, that's the right match. And I think one other thing, if you don't mind me just going backtrack a second,
Sure.
something I've learned is not everybody has the same values for you as you, and not everybody has the same expectations. And that's okay. But it's like hire slow and fire quick type mentality, right? Don't hold on too long if you're not in the right environment or within the right brands and you don't feel that it's good. Go out there and find something that does feel really right for you. And that's the hire slow, fire quick, is take your time, really think through, is this somebody I want to bring onto my team? Is this something I want to be a part of? This person is going to be resonating and reflecting my brand, And again, that's something we learned over time is like, I don't know. So are you hiring the right people? Or are you not hiring them? Are you in the right business partnership? Or are you not in the right business partnership? How do you trust that process? How do you lead that process? But ultimately, when it doesn't feel right, you got to just kind of move on, because they will go out and find other places that might be better suited for them. And you will bring in the people that are better suited for what you're trying to build. And that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. No one's ever said me for delivering the best hospitality, so I do really appreciate that. It's been, an absolute delight to do the interview. We've been connected a while online, of course, and I love the content that you put out and sharing the little bits of your journey through Row House and the other brands that you've worked with. And honestly, this podcast could have been 2 hours today. There's so much things I wanted to dig into, so much great value for myself and the listeners as well. So, Deborah, really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Thank you. You too. I really appreciate you having me. And thank you for the content you're pulling out, because I think it's really interesting and helpful for the industry.
Thank you, Deborah.